All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's webinar. Well, Lunch and Learn webinar. And so the past couple weeks, we've been diving into decisions. We've been talking a lot about how to be confident with our decisions and how to stick to those decisions once we made them. And in our last Lunch and Learn, we really dove into this idea of getting out of our primitive brain, the part of us that wants to avoid pain at all costs, seek pleasure over maybe the long term, and conserve our energy. And so this part of our brain can help us in the immediate feel better, but it's very much a survival focus. And we want to be more long-term, strategic, growth-minded. And so we talked about ways to shift that. And I do recommend, if you didn't get a chance to look at those, you go back and take a listen to those, because it will help you to be able to make decisions from that place of confidence and in knowing what you want. But in today's Lunch and Learn, we are going to take a different approach. This Lunch and Learn is all about how to decide your way. Because we've talked about some different strategies in the past Lunch and Learns, and yes, they can help. But what I think sometimes happens is we get so caught up in our heads about the way we're supposed to do something, about the best practices for how to decide, for how to move forward, for how to make momentum happen in our careers and in our lives, that we forget to think about ourselves, what we want, and not just in terms of an outcome, but in terms of how we like to decide. What works for us, what feels natural, right, whole, true, resonates with who we are. And this is something that gets forgotten in a lot of the literature about decisions, because the literature is looking for the right way. And as we previously talked about, there is no right way to decide. And not only is there not just a right decision, but a process in terms of how to decide, there is no right way for that either. Which that means is you get to create your own process. Now, what sometimes happens here is people take that and they use it to get overwhelmed. Because if I share, hey, guess what? There is no single right way or the way or best way to decide. You get to choose. It opens up a world of possibility. But in that possibility, we sometimes get stuck because it leads to so many options, endless options, that we end up getting stuck about how we want to decide. So what I'm going to do today is talk about some different ways people tend to make decisions and know what's right for them. And then you get to decide which of those ways resonates with you. And so you'll leave with an idea about what resonates with you, and you can take that into all your decision-making practices. Okay, so I'm going to start with one that is dear to my heart because it's how I tend to make decisions and know what I want. And it is using my emotions. So some of us, the way we decide is instinctual. We just feel like we know it. For others, it's emotional. And I'm differentiating that from instinct because it isn't necessarily physical. It's more of an emotional experience. So for me, I know when I decide, it's not often like a gut reaction that I feel in my bones that's instantaneous. It's more of a wave. And what that means is I'll go through an emotional wave before I know what I want. So first, I usually go up and I think a decision is great, it's awesome, it's wonderful, but I don't want to act from that place, because if I do and I haven't had my full emotional wave, what happens is I'll make a decision, I'll agree to something because I feel great in the moment, and then I regret the decision later on, because when I'm more level-headed and not in such an emotional rush, I would have decided differently. And so I notice how I feel in this wave of emotion. It usually starts with an up, where I'm really excited, I can't wait to get going, I feel impassioned, it's going to be awesome. And then as I let myself sit with my emotions, it then goes down. And then I start to think, oh gosh, what if it goes wrong? And I start to get really anxious or eager in an uncomfortable sort of way, or I'll get really sad or depressed or angry or frustrated about it. And if I decide from that place, well, then I often will regret that decision too, because I'll be in such an emotional state on the other end that I won't be able to decide what I want. And so for me, I like to go through that full wave where I'm up and down, and then it levels out. And what that does is it gives me the data to know what I would do when I feel good and to know what I do when I feel bad. And not that one way is the right way or the other, but taking that data together, I can then, from a neutral spot, once the wave levels out, think, okay, I've seen it from all sides here. I've felt it really from all sides now. Knowing what I know now from this feeling experience, how do I want to move forward? And by that point, I can use the insights I've gained from feeling the highs and lows and decide. And so that is my way to decide. And when I don't follow this, when I rush to decide because I'm experiencing a feeling that I haven't processed, or I haven't really gotten to process the whole thing, I often don't make the decisions that I would have made if I had waited until I was able to just fully process what I was experiencing emotionally. So that's what it is for me. Maybe that's what it is for you as well, but it might not be. Another way, and this is one of my close coach colleagues and friends, and the way that she processes decisions, is she's gut and instinctual from a physical place. She says she knows with big decisions instantaneously what she wants to do. It just comes to her. It's like an inner knowing. It's not a voice. It's not a feeling. It's a knowledge. But it's also physical because she feels it like in her gut. She knows it, and it's instantaneous. So for her, when it comes to big decisions, she knows that she gets this instinctual hit and that it is true to her. She doesn't make that decision and then think or go into this instant like, oh no, I don't think I should have decided. She's found this approach works well for her. Now, if I take that approach, I'm not able to get the insight from my emotional wave. And so for me, it doesn't work. But for her, her emotions don't play the same role that mine do when she's deciding. So she uses her inner knowing. Now, when it comes to little decisions, for my colleague that I'm talking about here, she needs to get really in touch with that voice, that knowingness. And when I say voice, I don't mean a sound. She doesn't hear it. She just knows it, just comes to her. She just knows. But she can do that easily for big decisions because it's a stronger knowing. But when there are decisions that feel less impactful to her, like there's less of a repercussion or less of a positive rush from it, she doesn't have that knowing as fine-tuned. And so what she's doing is working on noticing the physical sensation of the knowing, because then she can take that and apply it to all decisions and start to hone and dial in on her ability to know, because she'll know the physical cues for her for knowing. Those are two ways that people use to decide. And you really want to think about what resonates with you. Which of these approaches can feel more like you? And there's a couple more that I want to share. So the next approach that I want to share is about localization. And this is where you literally know what you want by voicing it. Speak your truth kind of thing. So if you're not sure how to move forward on a decision, but you start talking about the decision and not from a calculative place, you just start letting it out, it'll talk itself out to the point where then you can decide. Now, I do find this approach can help me, but my talk is often about feelings. How am I feeling? What's coming up? But for somebody else who's really into the talking as the main element, it's what am I saying? What am I saying here? And that truth will help them to decide. And so it's very auditory driven and a communication aspect. Maybe they're having the conversation with themselves, but it's a way for them to decide. They speak it. They don't sit and reflect and write and ruminate and wonder. They don't notice and feel the emotions. They don't instantaneously have a gut feeling, but they say it. They speak, quote unquote, literally speak the truth, their truth, how they're knowing in that moment, what they're thinking in that moment, and that auditory process allows them to decide, and that's their process for deciding. Another way, and this one is especially for those who are very into the moon and lunar cycles, is to process in a longer time period. And so this isn't about a wave of emotion. It's more about allowing yourself the time to take in what's around you. It doesn't mean you're concretely analyzing every little data point, but you're just taking in information for the span of a lunar cycle, or however you would describe it for yourself. Maybe it's 30 days, maybe it's a week. Notice for you the amount of time that you like to give to deciding. And there's no right or wrong amount. There's an aspect in our culture today where we're all about quick decisions, make them quick. And yeah, that can work, but it's not the right way. It's just a way. And so for those who like to think about it in terms of the lunar cycle, so how the phases of the moon and going and not deciding until you've been through an entire month span, or maybe for you it's more of a week instead of a month, but letting yourself know, hey, I like to have a week for this type of decision. It helps me. Not that you are obsessively focused on the decision for the whole week, but it could just be taking in information passively, or noticing it and dreaming about it and using that whole time period, whatever time period you choose for yourself, as a process of reflection to take in insights and knowing that at the end of the time frame, you're going to decide. And so you almost have a deadline for yourself about when you're going to decide, but it's not from this place of panic or clinginess or must decide. It's more so from okay, I'm going to take this amount of time. I'm going to reflect. I'm going to think about it and go about my life as it is, knowing that it's processing in the back or in my dreams or in my subconscious. And then when that date comes, I'll choose. I'll decide. And I'll know what I decide then is the way to go. And so those are 4 different ways that we can decide. And you want to think about which way feels right for you. Now, aspects of all of them can come together and you can utilize pieces of each. But we do tend to have a dominant one. And that is something that is for you to use, for you to choose how you want to do it. So I'm going to wrap us up there. The key takeaway is there is no one right process for decision making, but there is the process that feels right and resonates with you. And so through this Lunch and Learn, I hope you've had an idea to explore some of the different ways we tend to decide and to choose. You can even play with them. Maybe one week you try one way and one week you try the next, and notice what works for you. And this honing the practice and listening to yourself, to your physical sensations, to your emotional sensations, to your inner knowings, to what you're hearing, to the thoughts you're experiencing. Being attuned to all that as you're testing and playing with each one will help you fine-tune your own process that can work for you. All right, thank you so much for joining me. And if you want to go deeper, you want to know more, you're loving what we're talking about, and you're really curious to hone in on your style, what's right for you, and we'd love a coach to help walk you through this process by asking you questions so you can access your own inner intuition and knowing, then sign up for a consultation call with me. This call is free, and it is your opportunity to dive into your brain. We'll talk about what's working for you. We'll talk about what's not. We'll identify some goals in terms of where you're wanting to head, and we'll build a roadmap to help you get there. This is a free call. And the reason it's free is, one, my mission in life is to help people to take charge of their life. And this call is my way to help you do that for free so that you're able to easily come to this call ready to go. And 2, this call is free because I believe in giving value ahead of time. I work with paying coaching clients and they invest in the program that I offer because it is something that calls to them. It is something that can work for them and it can work for you too. Sometimes we're not sure yet. And a way to help us is to get value ahead of time. And so this free consultation call that I offer is your way to get value ahead of time. You will leave the call with takeaways that you can immediately apply to your life, to your career, to your decisions, to your confidence. And so this call is your way to do that for free, to get value ahead of time for free. Now on this call, I will share what my coaching program is. And this is for those who are truly interested in diving into their mind. If it doesn't seem like the right fit, and sometimes it's not, I will tell you that. And I've done that before on these consultation calls because sometimes it isn't the fit that you're looking for. It doesn't address the things that you're wanting to explore. And so on this call, we'll talk about what support options can be and whether or not the coaching program seems like a great fit for you from what I know of the program, and also for you to decide for yourself. My goal at the end of the call is that you leave with actionable takeaways and that you leave knowing whether or not you want to continue forward with coaching in a paid program. So if you are wanting to sign up for that call, you can go to lisaphilia.com/schedule. That's lisaphilia.com/schedule. You can go ahead and sign up for a call there. Again, it's free. And no matter what, you leave with valuable insights that you can immediately apply to you. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.